Hello, all, and welcome to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I am your host, Daniel Coolbaugh. Today, I have me a very special guest, Lou Paduano. Lou, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, not a problem, not a problem. Anytime. Like I said before we got recorded, I'm so upset that I missed the Horseheads Comic Con this year, but hopefully I can, check you there next year. Are you going to? Do you plan on going back to the Rochester one at all? Do you think, or?
The Flower City one I'm skipping out on this year because Erie is the same weekend.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So
Ooh,
last
that's
year I had
hard
to
for
skip
me.
Erie, so this year I'm skipping Flower City. And
Oh man, I didn't. I'm actually glad you said that because I'm actually seeing my buddy later on, who I was go to like the other Comic Cons with and stuff. So yeah, I might have to let him know because we talked about that one. I didn't realize that. That kind of bums me out.
right? Yeah.
I was looking forward to going. Yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
2 years ago they were a week apart, and it worked out.
I was gonna
perfectly.
say, yeah. Oh, I'm so bummed. He's gonna be bummed to hear that. But yeah, like we were talking about doing Erie for quite a while now. Actually,
It's a good
definitely
show.
at least like 3 years. Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah. When I see him either tonight or tomorrow when I'm going to dinner, I'll have to let him know. We'll have to pre-plan. So if he agrees to that, we'll have to let you know ahead of time and meet up there. But yeah, yeah, I'm bummed I missed Horseheads, but yeah, I can't wait to check that one out again next year. But yeah, I'm so glad we could get you on today. Talk to about your Comic Con experience. Selling in person, but also just your writing tips and tricks and really get to talk more, about you and your books, just so our audience could kind of, get a glimpse in there more. I was so excited, to see the products that you had, in person at, multiple Comic Cons. So I can't wait to let people know and, kind of dive a little bit more into those. So thank you so much for showing up today and letting us pick your brain a little bit.
Anytime, anytime.
Awesome. Awesome. We'll start right there with that first question. What has your writing journey been like up until this point?
It's been quite a challenge. I've been plugging away at this for a good 10 years now. So
Yeah.
it started small, working in the basement on a folding table during nap time and bedtime.
I know that feeling.
Right? But I set to work every day with a new task. I've got my calendar in front of me. I know where I need to be, and I just plug away. So it's been a lot of fun, and I don't know how to not do it at this point.
That's fair. That's fair. So one thing that's been coming up for me, Lou, is and I'm curious at like how you handle this is I have so many things like irons in the fire, as they say, and I'm like I want to do this or that, right? And sometimes like this summer, my wife like before we got recording, she's like, you gotta just finish this one project because she's like, then you can do these other things, and I had to kind of pause and do my anthology story, two of them because it's like a scheduling thing, and I got to get them in sooner rather than later. So I kind of just took a little break for my prequel novella, and I'm going to finish that. But after that, I'm not quite sure if I should keep going or if I'm going to want to switch to something else. So I'm just curious, like, and I know I've talked to some other people in the audience who have had this issue too. How do you pick what to do next, or what's going to be, like the most valuable use of your time? Like when it comes to different calendar dates or after a project is done.
I think that's a fair question, and one that I go back and forth on all the time. So I have two series running right now, and I am constantly wondering, should I stagger between them? Should I jump back and forth? Do I pick a point where it makes more sense to go back?
Yeah.
So a lot of it is just where your headspace is at. But for me, right now, I am trying to close out projects before I start new ones. So right now,
So you're smarter than me. That makes total sense.
I would not say that. I would not say that because I'm sure there are a lot of people on my newsletter that are like, "When are you coming back to DSA?" I'm sick of. Stop talking about Greystone. I'm sick. No, no more urban fantasy, sci-fi all the
Oh,
way.
oh,
You know?
oh man, and I'm like, I got your number. Like, yeah, I got two of your books like waiting and primed right now because I had some people. I had a list and then it got totally blown up because I had a bunch of people be like, "Can you review this book for me?" And I'm like, oh, yeah, I can. So I have like, because I bought like your physical books. So and my buddy, I keep telling him I'm not giving them up until I read them. So I think he started with your sci-fi.
Okay. I
With
was
the
wondering. I
digital
was wondering.
copies of those. But yeah, so I'm gonna have to try and wrap up by next month. I think it might. I think you might be my vacation reads, if I could be honest, because I usually take like five, like paperbacks with me. I go to my parents. It's like the internet's hard there. They don't have like Wi-Fi and stuff, and sometimes it's just nice, just to crack the physical books open. So
And
yeah,
ignore
I
your
can't wait for
parents,
that.
right?
You said what? Sorry.
You go and you ignore your parents. You're like, I brought books. I brought
No.
books.
No, well, like I go to bed later now with this time change. My son will go to sleep, and then my wife's usually like just kind of chilling or whatever. Or she'll go to bed early. It's hard, traveling and stuff, and especially with a little guy. So like I'll just sit there, and I'm like so used to in that environment reading, physical books. That's what I did as a kid. We didn't have like cable and stuff, so books and video games was like what my brother and I did. Unless it was basketball outside. So yeah, like I always take like five paperbacks. I had yours stacked away with a couple others, and my wife goes, "I don't know if that like." 'Cause I had like five, so I had like two of yours, two of my friends, and like just like another like just like regular mass paperback. My wife's like, "I don't think that's going to be enough for you next next month." So I might have to stack a little bit more. But I found some cool novellas too that were used from an author like 10 years ago. We were just on our honeymoon, and I had totally forgotten about them, and they were supposed to be pretty good. It's like hippos are like their main form of like transportation instead of horses. Totally blank on the authors, but yeah, my friend was like, if you like an alternate, like Wild West fantasy, like he's like these are really cool. So it popped back up on my radar because we were just talking about them. So I got those yours and then those stacked away. So I told her this weekend I was like, I'm gonna start planning. Because I was like, if I don't read the other ones, right, it's like fine, but yeah, I don't want to be without. But yeah, I think that's smart though that you're finishing series because that's my thing though, right? Is like, and I always call this a journeyman's podcast, and I know people want me to interview Brandon Sanderson and stuff, but there's enough. No offense to Brandon or anybody else, but there's enough people that do that. I want to talk to people like you've been doing this for 10 years, and you have really cool products, right? So for me, it's like I want to talk to people like I just think statistically speaking, I'm probably not going to be Brandon Sanderson. So I want to talk to people who are going to be in the same, I'm going to be in their, in their shoes, and figuring out how they do things, to get to higher levels and to still have a good time doing it. So I think that that's really valuable advice. But yeah, I know like I've talked to quite a few people. I'm like, I don't know, like, do I stick and just finish out this prequel novella trilogy, or do I, take a break, do my dark fantasy, and sometimes I'm too moody as a reader, so sometimes I think I'm too moody as a writer.
No, like I said,
So I'm
I
gonna
go
try
back.
and stay a little more focused.
I go back and forth all the time because I'm one of those people that's like I could be writing a new series, but should I be finishing something? Maybe should I have book 5 planned before I start book 1? Should I do it a certain way? It's just you have to pick your battles. You got to know where
Yeah,
you
yeah,
are in your head.
yeah. Well, that actually makes you think of another like subset question. Like, so when you do a series, are you trying to plan like kind of outline the whole thing if it is a 5 book series, or do you kind of just like have like one ending in mind and like the middle you kind of just let yourself hop, or how do you plan out like how you're gonna do like do you just do book 1 and just kind of go from there? How do you plan out your different series or start a new series or a project?
Well, for DSA is told episodically, and it's told in a seasonal structure. So 6 books are per season. So when I break a season down at one time, and I have an outline and a sketch for all 6 books before I start putting pen to paper. And so I have a roadmap, and I know the seeds for future seasons, but I don't have every detail planned.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I know how
I find that's
yeah, I know how the series ends. I have that exact scene done, but I don't know what's going on in the 4 books ahead of that. So
yeah, yeah. Well, that's like I started to do that more because, like I said before we got recorded, like I have a Kindle Vella series, and then it just didn't happen. So I found that was easier, right? Because I had already planned it as like a season would be 10 episodes and this many words and stuff, or like chapters or whatever. So yeah, I think that's like more natural for me now because that's how I was doing that, and I planned out quite a bit. But that definitely helped me plot and outline. I think just generally everything better. So I think that makes total sense. But I like how you said seasons though, because I think so many people think, and I have people on here all the time. So many people think in that type of format, right? Like in that visual, medium. So they think of it as in terms of seasons. And I think podcasts for, whether it's the Magnus Archives or something like that, they do seasons too, right? Or different, episodes. So I think that makes total sense to think about that, in terms of outlining or planning out books, because that's what we do, in so many other categories. So I
No,
think that's
yeah,
a
I
really
mean,
good idea.
it's just how I was raised. We were TV junkies. We shouldn't have been. We shouldn't have been, but we were.
Makes you creative, though. Just
It
saying.
does. No, there was definite times where you're watching a show and you're like, oh, this is where the turn's gonna happen. Oh, they got to finish the A plot now because we got to see the next episode. We got to get
Yeah,
back to
yeah.
the season arc. You know, and it's
Yeah, my friend, he
helped.
was like,
That's where
yeah,
DSA came from. That's what my
yeah,
love
yeah,
was.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I have people all the time. They're like, you watch so many movies. I was like, I don't anymore, but I used to watch a lot. But like when I was a kid, I watched them all the time because like we didn't have cable, like I said. So like we would just put on a movie. I watched The Mummy with Brendan Fraser like at least a million times.
Right.
Whether it was just to eat or do homework. The Two Towers was like another one high on my list. It's just nice to have on the background. And yeah, so I think that makes total sense again. Yeah, to go with that type of medium, like go with what you know, right? Like why try and yeah, why try and restructure it? All right. So what genre or genres do you currently write in, and why?
Currently, Greystone is my urban fantasy series, and the DSA is a sci-fi crime and mystery series. Those are my two bread and butters right now. Why do I write in those? Because they're not set in the real world, really. I mean, they're reality adjacent. I always say for DSA,
I like that.
um, and the Greystone series has grown more fantastical as it's gone on. I love being able to mix and match different myths and legends and put them in a cityscape and see how they play. I like having those high octane adventures. I don't want to be bogged down in too much in reality.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's fair. I'm curious, like, so for me, like, I saw a really cool thing, and it became a character, and now it's become like she's become a huge thing within my urban fantasy. She's gonna get her own series, like as a vampire huntress. But like, I saw a video on TikTok that was really interesting, and it was like a guy asked, and I teach history, so I thought it was so interesting. He's like, what if the Aztec Empire was so bloody and did so many sacrifices was because they were ran by vampires? And I just like saved that video for later. And I thought I have to do something with that. And then my vampire huntress is going to be descended from Aztec, like Jaguar warriors, and she's just so much fun. Like she's going to pop up in an anthology story for me. But like I saved that, and then Facebook had these three knights, right? That were legend says were like in the Crusades, and then they fight this evil spirit and do these things. It was just like so cool. I was like, I have to do something with one of my urban fantasy characters with these three knights. Like they got to be like part of the big bad, right? Like very Harry Dresden and Jim Butcher. And I save things like that so I can go back to them later and insert them. How do you find your ideas for those kind of things that you're bringing into your stories for both urban fantasy and sci-fi? Is it art? Is it movies, TV, characters you read? Like, how do you find your different points of inspiration?
I'd say it goes back to my love of comic books. I'm a huge comic book reader, so a lot of those. So Soraya is a very much a urban vigilante. So she's got that kind of vibe to her where she is this heroine and she's pulled into these situations and she's going to be a badass no matter what. Um, Beyond that, yeah, DSA is very much my love letter to the X Files. I draw a lot of inspiration from that kind of vibe. Um, so that conspiracy undertone throughout the series, that's where that comes from.
That's cool.
In terms of the plotting, in terms of the pacing, that's very much I garner that from. I give a lot of credit to J.M. Straczynski and Babylon 5.
Oh
That
man,
was my favorite show of all time. So
so
the,
good.
the 5 season structure, the way things play out and are seeded right from the start, it's very much in the back of my mind when I'm putting a season together for DSA.
Oh, you said two of my favorite words, Babylon 5.
Boom. Right?
I had somebody on here recently. They're like, "Yeah, my next thing is going to be like Babylon 5," and then I didn't hear what the other thing they said was because I was like, "I don't care. I'm just gonna read it."
Right?
And
Sold.
they were like, "Yeah," they said something. I go, "You had me at Babylon Did you see that like they have like the new X Files that they're working on? Man, that looks like it's gonna be good. Amazing, like writer, director, and
Is it
then the
still Ryan
female lead.
Coogler,
Oh, I'm like blanking.
right,
I
from
thought
Black
he was
Panther?
helping. I thought it was somebody else. I can't remember now. I'll have to look it up. Well, I'm gonna have to have an episode on that because man, it like it when I just saw like the one article where they picked like, and I didn't know if they were doing something new or it's like adding on. And that's like a thing I've been talking to people about, like Babylon 5, right? If you try to redo it, I'd personally be upset because I would just be mad. I'm just gonna be honest. But if you added to it, I like it's like kind of like Firefly, right? Like I first love, it was Babylon 5. My second adult love in sci-fi, I think, was Firefly. And so, like, if you're going to add on to them, I feel more comfortable with that because I think Star Trek has done a pretty good job with certain things. But yeah,
Certain
like,
things.
I'm curious for X Files. Really, if they add on, I'm like, because I always want to see, like, an updated version of the agents and, and different things and
Yeah, definitely.
how they build. Because it would be cool if, like Mulder and Scully were like popping in as like Shadow Dark people. Like I just see a lot of really cool things popping up and just being really neat. So I hope that they do a good job.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
Babylon 5. I was like, oh, if you guys could add on to that, and if you did it right, I would really enjoy that because that's one where I'm always like it never gets enough credit in my opinion.
No, that's
Um,
that's why I was hoping Crusade would take off the way it did.
I
That was
know.
ah,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel you on that. Yeah, you never know what's gonna hit, right? Like whether it's books, movies, or or
no.
comics. Like, yeah, a lot of times I think it's just like that hit or miss, because like I find some things I'm like, why was this not huge? Particularly in comics, and like DC had one. It was like Dark Gods or something like that, and it was like an 8 issue run of like this fantasy world, and it was awesome because it was like these. Like the hero party D&D party, right, defeated the evil god, but they didn't really, and then it comes back like 20 years later, and then they have to deal with like the fallout, and it was amazing. But I was like, why was there nothing else that was done with this? And I guess like marketing they didn't do really well. But that's where I'm like, please, please, please do better with the new X Files. I would love it. Well, that sounds awesome. I think that's how you actually sold me for the series, though, was because you, like, when I first met you, you were like, yeah, this is like X Files meets this. And I was like, again, I was like, you have met X Files. My friend's like, you have to get that now. I was like, I have to. And that's what I did. And that's why I'm excited to read it. So I think that's really cool. But now, like, I'm going to go to a couple of my favorite questions, really, is just talking about specifically about your guys' like products, particularly books, because I love books. And this is one of my favorite questions to ask people is really to get in, to their books and their series, and really kind of get that peek behind the curtain, so to speak. So, what are your Greystone books about, and how'd you come up with this idea?
So, Greystone is an urban fantasy adventure series. It follows Soraya Greystone and Detective Loren, and they hunt different myths, legends, and monsters in the city of Portents. So this is something that's been with me for 20 years now, which is crazy to think about. But I remember Image, an off branch of Image, Shadowline, was putting together. They wanted more pitches to go with their Bomb Queen series, and I'm like, oh, I'll put some stuff together. I'll throw some stuff out there, not knowing anything about pitching or anything. So I would email them these like single paragraphs, like no details on characters, no details on anything about the world or how it would be plotted or any kind of structure. And Greystone was one of those paragraphs, and that's where it came from. That's where it started, and it was very much I would say a love child of the Dresden Files. Like it was very much like in that vein, but it started very like suburban. Like Soraya was just this mother that would go out at night and fight crime and stuff, and somehow between that moment and a couple years later when I put together the first draft, it became something much different. Where Soraya, it was now like the new adult, the new warrior trying to find her way. She's got her role, and she's working with Detective Loren, who doesn't want to be there. He's very much the reluctant hero, who's the sarcastic detective. stuck in this fantasy world. Um, and that's just it's evolved so much since then. It's just crazy to even think about that first paragraph and be like,
Yeah.
where was I going?
That's super cool. That's awesome. Now I have to ask, like, in terms of, the characters, they're like, were there particular people or, characters in media where you're like, oh, that's really cool? Because for me, like, I was trying to figure out my MC for my urban fantasy. I know it's like one of five, and I couldn't quite figure him out. And once Jack Reacher season one on Prime came out, I 75% of the way figured him out, and he was like, "I'm more like that." And I was like, "Oh dang!" And then when Tracker with Justin Hartley came out, he's like, "Actually, this guy's perfect." He's like, "I'm more like this," and a little bit at times like Jack Reacher, and I'm like, "Oh." So for me, like I kind of fashioned his character after these two. So I'm just curious, like, how did you kind of fashion, these two main characters?
I would love to say that there's a point of reference for each of them, but I
Sometimes they
honestly I
just
can't.
come to you, right? Like,
It's about asking questions, I think. So
ooh,
you
I
get
like that.
you get a sense of who they are, and then you question them. You say, well, in this kind of situation, who are you? Like, what would be your reaction to this? And you just listen to their voice for a little bit, and that's how they grow in your head.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't have a specific TV character or book character that would point to either of them. I think my
yeah,
wife
yeah.
is more likely to find somebody, but
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm always curious because everybody has, a different style, a different method, and it works for it works for people, right? So something that works for me might not work for you, vice versa, right? Like I do a lot of art, like I'll look at a lot of art. I was originally going to go into illustration. Sorry guys, I can't do much now. It's been years. Also hurt my hands really bad, but I'm trying to get back into it so I can do my own book covers and stuff. But yeah, like it's like one of those things where for me, like I see a particular piece of art and I'm like, ooh, and that's what happened to me. I saw my character in a particular piece of art, and I thought, oh man, that's amazing. And then I started to what you did is like ask questions. I just needed that other piece, right? Because I had other people that suggested that to me, and I was like, he's just not telling me, and like uh, it's just so funny because like I always talk about like Robert E. Howard on here with Conan, and like there was one of his friends watched him write a lot, and he's like, yeah, it's almost as if Conan was like talking to him over his shoulder, and then he'd like write, and then he'd kind of listen a little bit, and then he'd write. So yeah, I think that's always interesting to see how different people come up with their ideas. So that's super super cool. I got to ask though, why mom
I
going out to like
I
just because like
I have no idea. I think it was that
that's such a cool idea.
I think it was just one of those like that seemed how maybe it was a motif in a lot of shows at that time or something where it was like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah,
it's their second life, and they've got to work on how to balance between the two. But
yeah, yeah,
it was something that didn't last very long in the editing room,
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I say that's cool because I like now you got me thinking like, they could possibly do Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? And then have her be
right?
the mom. Like I would totally watch that. And then have her daughter or son or something or whoever like she could help them. Like, oh, we got to get a hold of whoever has the rights right now. But I don't know. It sounds cool because anybody can be mid 20s, super buff, super fat, whatever, right? Super fast. But I think it's always interesting, when you're picking people, characters at different times of their life, right? Because at some point you're going to have a reader who's in that mode, right, and in that age. So I don't know. I think that's really cool. Yeah, I think it's always hard, when people are always picking a particular time period or set, piece for a character. Oh, my character's got to be 25 and just starting or whatever. I got this character that's kind of like he's kind of like Danny Glover, right? I'm too old for this stuff, and I'm like I'm having so much fun because that's how I feel right now
Right.
with my crack rib. So yeah, I just always find it interesting to see how different people form their
Hopefully,
characters.
there's not a chase scene because that's not going to go well for him.
Yeah, there is one. It was so fun to write. I thought right now, how well would I do in this situation? It's
Exactly.
hilarious. I was like, this is going to be really fun for people, and then I get to tell that story of having a cracked rib. Yeah, so it's gonna be fun. Now, what are your Greystone and training books about, and what types of urban fantasy tropes did you focus on for that?
So as I was working on Greystone, I had outlined and plotted the first 5 books, and I knew that I was coming to a major turning point in the series. I knew that it was ending the first major arc where Loren's trying to figure out who murdered his wife, and I knew the answer was coming for that, and a big blow up with one of the major threats that have been hiding in the background the whole time. So at that moment, I knew I could step away from the series, and I wanted a chance to look back at Soraya in particular, because for we've answered all these Loren questions, but who has been Soraya this whole time? Like, where did she come
Ooh.
from? What were her trials in terms of learning how to be the Greystone, the protector of the city, and what she had to go through for that? So that's where Greystone and Training came from. And what it was originally meant to be were 3 8-chapter short stories that were going to just be for my newsletter subscribers. And as I was outlining the first one, I realized, oh, there's all this background that we could be giving for who she is and why she's been doing this whole time. And it just
Right.
kind of blew up from there. So we had so the first book is Hammer and Anvil, and it deals with the Minotaur being released from the labyrinth, and it was a chance to explain certain things for certain characters. Like, she has a teacher who goes by Mentor, and he gets injured in that book, and I realized that injury ties into what happens to him in the first book of the main series. Like, actually, I will correct myself. My wife figured that out. I didn't figure that out until
We have it on record now, Lou.
way after. She gets total credit for that. Total
I'll
credit.
cut that out where you said you. Don't worry about it.
So
We'll clean it up in post, as they say.
that's it. That's it. Please, please. All credit. Melinda gets all credit.
That's super awesome.
But yeah, so there was a chance to showcase that aspect of her character, and then it dovetails right back into the story that we were telling in the main series, the for the back half. So
Yeah,
it worked out perfectly. Yeah, in terms of the tropes, I actually I'm one of those people that's like, oh, I don't use tropes. What are you talking about? I'm way beyond that. I'm totally not doing any of those. So I printed off a list. I did homework, and I'm like, oh, I checked this box. I checked this box. Like, there's so many. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I've got the chosen one, Sarai the Greystone, the protector of the city. I've got let's see, hidden supernatural society. I'm checking almost every single box on here.
that's
So
awesome.
I'm just that in tune to my genre, I guess.
I love that, Lou, because barely any of my kids did their homework this week, so I really appreciate that. I think they're like spring fever right now. And now on Monday, I get to say, "Do you have your homework done?" Because the author I interviewed, he did his homework. So
Boom, you show them.
that's awesome. I'm gonna pull that out as one of the magic clips, and like that's gonna be our introduction to the lesson, and me
There,
asking them if they
there
have
you
their homework.
go.
Well, I do think like so. Just to go back, I think trope because like I think it has a negative connotation now, right?
It really does.
Where and I don't like that personally because like I look, it's like a menu, right? Like a trope to me is like a menu. Like for instance, my kid's gonna want pizza because it's Friday, right? He wants extra pepperoni. Like, and if there's another pizza, it's whatever, but it's got to have a ton of pepperoni on it so I can pick it up, right? And for me, it's like urban fantasy is the same way, right? Like I want an interesting character. I want them to be something related to the supernatural community, right? Or have some relationship. So whether it's a druid, and I even plug that a little bit, and I love Dresden Files, but like on the back of my prequel novella, I say, my character, he's no PI, like he's just doing this monster hunter thing. But I literally say that, right? Like I'm playing off of that trope, to try to give people a little bit different one, But monster hunter is a trope, like and it's just a different one maybe. So I think trope definitely, yeah, has like a negative connotation now, but like for me as a reader, I'm like, oh, I think that's really cool. And the ones you just listed, I'm like, check, check, check. So the more you do, right, the more I'm like, oh, I'm gonna read that. And so I think it is interesting in the community. Like I don't know where it started from, where all of a sudden tropes started to get that negative connotation. Because for me, it's like it just shows. It's like when you're searching right on Google, right, for those keywords. Like if you had me at druid, PI, or whatever it is, right, with it in an urban fantasy setting, and I'm like, sweet, I'm there. Vampire, whether it's Mercy Thompson or something like that. So yeah, I don't know. For me, they're sellers for me, So I always find it interesting now that they've had like a negative connotation.
No,
But
you're absolutely right. I mean, I have had a couple people that'll stop at the table and they'll listen to my pitch and they'll say, "Oh, it's that," and it's like, well, I only have 15 seconds to try and tell you what this series is about. The books are, I mean, there's 4,000 pages. I'm pretty sure it goes a little deeper than that, but I have to sell you on this, right?
my
So,
friend and I will do that back and forth now. We'll take turns before we're like going somewhere. And for me, I'm just like prepping. I don't feel like I feel like I do this a lot, so it's like whatever. And I talk to my students a lot about stuff I write. So I feel like if I can pitch to them and they're interested, they're my hardest. I think they're the toughest critic personally.
right?
But yeah, but it's funny because like yeah, so I think back to when you sold me on a couple books. I'm like, yep, yep. And at the time, I was like, man, if I had just gotten paid, I would have gotten a ton more at the spring and everything, or in the fall. So I'm like, yeah. So I just find that so interesting. But we'll do that. Like he'll be like, okay, and like randomly, right? Like text me, be like, hey, you have 30 seconds. Sell me your book right now, and then I'll literally pitch it in like the chat. And then I'll wait a couple weeks, and then we haven't done it in a while. He's not going to see this for a little bit, so I'm going to do this to him again tomorrow or tonight, and I'll send it back to him and be like, "Hey, pitch me this book of your 3 in 30 seconds." So I think 15 is hard.
It's tough. It's tough. They want to
Yeah,
move on. They
you got
want
a lot
to.
of books, so that's wild to me.
I don't know
And
how
you
I'm
have
going to
really
do
cool
it.
covers too. So
If I get another series in there, I don't know what I'm going to do.
you can come with me and Mike, and we'll just like put 3 tables together. Like the 3
Oh,
long.
let's do it.
We can have like the little. We talked about, dude. Like I'm trying to get like one of those cool like cardboard cutouts. That would be really fun. So we'll just like move mine over. Yeah, we'll just like go like that. I find that wild. Yeah, I don't know. I thought you pitched me really well. My friend was like, oh, I'm gonna get these. You get these. Like we had to be strategic about it, like to get the physical copies. And that's like we were bummed we couldn't go to Horseheads because we were coming back for like another round. So that's really interesting. Yeah. So yeah,
That was
I'll have to
that was
tell
an
him that.
evolution on itself. Just because I remember doing HorrorCon at Nickel City back in 2018, and that was my one of my first shows. And
Oh, yeah.
I would sell Greystone more on the paranormal side, just because I was in that area. And man, nobody wanted to hear that. Oh, paranormal. That could be anything. Well, like, yeah, it could be, but you could look at the
That's
book.
what's fun about it.
So I was very much an evolution of, oh, okay, I should lean more into the urban fantasy. Oh, I should change it from mystery to adventure. See how that plays. So it's just little tweaks like that over time.
It's interesting. Yeah, I did notice that. Like I had to be really careful because I have my Monster Hunter is an ex-marine, so I have to be careful, right? Because then in my prequel trilogy, it's like in the first book, it's Marines versus like monsters essentially, is what I can say, right? But like that doesn't happen in prequel 2 and 3 for the novellas. Like it's how he becomes a monster hunter. So one life has to die in order for him to get a new life. So but I had to be really careful of not selling the trilogy that way, but only saying this. And then my friend, that's where I'm in rewrites right now. He's like, dude, he's like, this is awesome. He's like, but this scene is amazing. This scene's amazing because it's like monsters versus Marines versus monsters. He's like, everybody wants this right now, and he's like, you really need to redo the ending of the book to make them, the battle and that kind of thing more the focus. So that way we could, plug those words some more when we're in person at the table. We're making pitches and stuff,
Yeah, that makes sense.
which I thought was really smart. But you bring up a really good point that everybody's saying this lately, right? Writing the book is only like a third of the battle, right? Like the battle's
If
really,
that, if that.
yeah, yeah, if that, yeah, yeah. I have some people I talk to, like, I think that's all I do now is plug myself or do whatever. But yeah, I don't think people think about that. So I do encourage the audience to think about that. That's like I like to I talk to you guys all the time, experienced authors and creatives. So I feel like I get like the inside scoop, right? Like, so before I'm publishing, I'm thinking of these things, right? I'm thinking of, cover, like when I print my copy, I have one spot on my new cover on the back where it's like, I don't know if this word is going to look good or not because digitally it doesn't, but I was like having trouble with the person with typography to understand, so, but then when they sent it to me a different file, like, different way, it was like, it was fine. So, but like, I keep thinking that back in my mind, because I don't want to sell someone a book where, they want the physical copy and it's not looking really good. Right. So, but I've had so many of my friends, like, like tell me little key things like, you should be working on your pitch right now for 30 seconds and then I've been really working on my 15-second one. But I think if you don't know people like you, Lou, right, or you haven't thought about that, it might be really hard. And I know a lot of people that just go to a con for the first time or just go to a convention and try to sell, and like maybe it was successful or maybe it could have been more successful, if they had thought a little. Like I had somebody talk to me about packaging even to a con, like getting the products in and out, how to set up the table. I thought yours was done really well, so kudos to you for that. So
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's interesting, but nobody ever talks about that stuff. Like, so we're filming me setting up for my first couple cons this year and just doing different things just so I can say, here's how we set stuff up, here's what we brought, was it successful, was it not. Like I kind of want to do like the backside of stuff, so that way people can kind of know what's going on. But I think that pitch is really important, so I think that's good advice right there.
My table setup is definitely on the docket because now I've exceeded my storage on the racks. Book 25 came out, so the two 12ers are not going to work anymore.
Oh my gosh, you bring up such a good point. Like, so how do you? I'm just curious, just because we're on this. I love natural topics, so and then we'll get back to asking about some more books and things like that for you, but and characters and things. But I'm just so curious for you with so many products over a 10-year span. How do you decide what you're bringing and how many of that product that you're bringing to that particular con or location? How do you make those decisions?
Yeah, it's been tough because usually I try to bring as much as I can.
Yeah,
So for the last couple, though, I've decided I'm bringing book ones, as many copies as I have on hand. So usually for a 2 or 3 day show, I'll bring 40, 50 copies of Greystone Book One and DSA Book One. Uh, Beyond that, I usually will only bring inside five or less of
yeah.
everything else.
Yeah.
I will keep some in the car in case I can escape and grab some more.
Smart.
But
Yeah.
Beyond that, it's usually book ones. That's usually what you're pumping out.
Smart. Well, it's so interesting, right? Because I'm going to be on the other side, right? Like just starting. So it's easy for me, right? Because I can bring book ones. I'm doing like a mini thing where I'm like making guys from the book, like from my Marine squad from the prequel novella, and I'm selling them as individual character minis or as the whole squad, or you could buy a particular unit if you like
Awesome.
that unit within the book. Yeah, I'm doing a little bit bigger bus of like the main character and a couple other people. And I found out because we have 3D prints here that are really nice. We have the new bamboos at my school, so if I just provide the filament, it's kind of nice, right? Because I could literally go on Hero Forge, do each one for like whatever it is, $8 or whatever, and then just get the spool. I'm going to be spending $64 to literally make like a ton of characters, but the net profit at the end could be like $900.
Yeah, right.
If
No,
I
people
sell
love
through
that
them.
stuff.
So yeah. And I'm like, oh, it's cool. I have a friend who does fantasy books. And I'm like, you should be creating your fantasy creatures and then blowing them up a little. I told him, I was like, send me your files. I was like, I'll have one of my friends help me and we'll just like mass produce them and then we'll package them nice. And then he lives over in PA. I was like, we'll just ship them back to you. But yeah, he's like looking into maybe like the library near him or something. So I just want to point that out to people. It's like it's always interesting to see how people, what people are selling, how many they're taking. I think that's genius, though, you said in the car, because I'm putting that in my notes, Lou, because I did not think about that. And I'm like, because we talked about setting up my car. I have a midsize SUV, and then had two friends that one's going to work like a Saturday. Like I say, we do like the horse has one's going to work Saturday, one's going to work Sunday, to be like my runner. So if they did have to, get stuff or whatever, like water or whatever, but Yeah, I didn't think about going to the car, so that's genius. So I'm going to add that to their to-do list. So just in case, just in case. Won't have to worry about right now, but yeah, you never know, right? So I think that's really really smart advice.
But that's something I had to do at Columbus. Columbus was they had a huge book festival in July, and
Cool.
the tent is in the center of this park. So you weren't anywhere close. You were in a parking garage 2 blocks over. So
Yeah.
I brought over like 6 bins, and everybody's looking at me like, "What are you doing with all these books?" And I said, "It's only 3 copies of each one, but I have hardcovers, I have paperbacks, and I have 24 books. Like there's only so much I can do." And I just said I had 4 more bins in the car, and I said half my stock's in the car, just in case.
Yeah. That's smart. A lot of people don't think 2 blocks is a lot, but like if you go to like Saratoga Springs, right, like east of me, and where my mother-in-law lives, and go to that Comic Con, even if you're in the parking structure, like across the street, it could literally between going in and out, and if you had to carry something like that, like you might be like 20 minutes away from your table. So I don't think people, really stop to think about things like that. And to me, like time is money, particularly when you're spending money to be there to make money.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think anything like that. So man, I think that's really smart. So I'm gonna
When
go
you
home
want
and
to
tell
use the
my wife.
bathroom, right?
Yeah, yeah, our bathroom. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep. Once I said to my friend, I was like, I'll pay for you to go with me, and this and this and that. I said, I'll pay for you to go, and other things and stuff. Pay for like Airbnb if we go to one like that and stuff. Yeah, but just to like have somebody else there. My wife will watch my son, and then we can, yeah, go do the thing, and then afterward go to dinner and stuff. But yeah, I was like, I'm gonna need someone to help because, yeah, it's just I was talking to a couple people about their setups and stuff. I was like, it's just so much easier having somebody else go. But that's where me and Mike were like, yeah, if we can do the table together, one of us would be like, oh, hey, he'll be right back, or something like that. So, but yeah, it's always interesting because I don't think a lot of people think about that. I talk to a lot of people that go to their first show. I was like, how'd it go? They were like, oh my god, I learned so much from failure or just like doing stuff silly or whatever. I was like, that's my entire life when it comes to books or being creative or this
Trial by
podcast.
error. Come on.
Yeah, I had somebody, I think it was Herbert Stewart Angle, he goes, why don't you just use Riverside or StreamYard? And I was like, what does that do? And he's like, oh, like it creates the other videos for you. Like you just do one, and then I was like, so this saves me so much time because I can get YouTube shorts or whatever. So I always love talking to people that know more than me because it just saves me time. I don't have a lot of it, so I think that's really smart. But yeah, I think anything that you can learn from somebody like you who's been around to these different shows, I think is like really really smart. All right. So sorry, guys, that was me because I'm thinking about tables and things like that. But we'll get back to Lou's books here.
All right, all right.
So yeah, we'll get back to the real stuff, as people like to call it. So what are your DSA books about, and how did you blend science fiction, crime, and mystery elements into this series?
So DSA is a story about a clandestine government agency. Ben Riley is recruited into this agency, and they are tracking scientific anomalies throughout the U.S. But there's a wider plot going on in the background about who's controlling humanity's fate, and why things are happening with society in the way they are, why we are evolving the way we are. So a lot of that, it's a lot of mad science. It's a lot of different aspects. We've got genetic manipulation. We've got cloning. We've got all kinds of fun stuff mixed in. Got some time travel. So a lot of that, there's a lot of sci-fi elements, but the wider mystery is why this is happening now and where we're heading as a society.
That's awesome. Like, I gotta give you credit, Lou, because like something you said to me when I bought the first 2 books, like really stuck with me, and I was kind of thinking like you're like these 2 series, and I kind of had like a Men in Black agency, and I was like, I like it, and then I had it separated from my urban fantasy series, and then I thought, you know what? Why don't I just combine the urban fantasy and some of the sci-fi? Because then all of a sudden I have all these cool characters, and I had to combine it for a particular reason, and that's all I can say right now. But you gave me the idea. I just want you to know, and
Boom.
it like everything locked into place, and I was like, yeah. So after our conversation, and that's why I go to cons and stuff, right, or do interviews, because like you said something to me, and it just like stuck with me. And I was like, and I was just looking at both, paperbacks for book ones the other day, and I was like, oh, like, I thought, yeah, this is just such a better idea, combining, everything, all these elements into just my urban fantasy setting. Because then I can have aliens, I can have whatever, and some different science fiction tropes, and it just, I don't know, it just really fits. So I want to thank you for that.
Oh, you're very
With your
welcome.
original
Anytime.
pitch, yeah, so it was really cool, and I'm like really excited to get to that series, and then to send you some free copies of that because I'm like so stoked about it. Yeah, it's gonna be super cool.
Awesome.
But I think that I don't know, like that's like my friend, like he's like I know you're more the urban fantasy, but I was like, well, then no, I was like this sounds cool, so that's why we grabbed both. But yeah, I'm really excited to read this one as well. Don't I told him I was like, don't put me in a box, you know? Like, that's like I like all these things, but do you find it easy or difficult at times to blend these different elements of these different genres into this series?
Um, it, everything comes from character for me. So as long as the characters are driving the story, and as long as
Yeah,
everything's running through them, I could put them into any situation. As long as it's their natural reaction to what's happening and
yeah,
how it
yeah, yeah.
fits the broader narrative.
I think that makes total sense. I guess there's times where, yeah, because now I'm thinking that, right? I'm like, oh, if I'm gonna, then my friend was like, yeah, this is great. It's a great idea, combining urban fantasy elements and science fiction. He goes, but have you really thought about it? And I was like, not past the initial phase. So I think that's yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah, it's always interesting, I think, to see how people do that. Because like Richard Lee Byers, I love that he wrote fantasy books like Forgotten Realms, but like I love that he brought in horror elements into fantasy. And I realized like I don't love the horror genre by itself, but like if you make it more horror supernatural or mystery, the Woman in Black with Daniel Radcliffe was like one of my like favorite like horror like straight horror movies, but there was a lot of supernatural things in there, and it was like less bloody and stuff. So for me, it was more of a supernatural thriller than it was a horror. And I just thought the story was really cool. So I don't know. I was thinking about that from like a broader context, and I thought, oh, I really love horror from like Aliens, right? Because I love the Alien movies. That's great horror, right? But yeah, I always find it interesting now because I realize like I love horror elements when, especially my favorite when they're mixed in with science fiction, fantasy, or as I like to say like supernatural or paranormal events because I don't know I always find those really interesting. For me, like some of the tropes in horror aren't exactly my favorites, but there are other things that I find super interesting. So I love when people combine some of those elements. So for me, like when you're saying, like, oh yeah, I have these other elements I'm combining, to me that sounds really cool because it's almost like you're a chef that's making a very, unique creation. So that's why that series for me, really it speaks to me because I'm like, oh, I really like when authors do that and can blend these different flavors together into something really unique. So I think that's super cool. So
The perfect example, if I can give you one, is in season two. There's a book called The Missing. It's the third book in the season, and it deals with missing people in the country, and they're trying to find one in particular. So it's very much a missing person case. But in the background, the person who's investigating that's helping them for this, her name is Lizzie Doyle, and she comes at it from a very strange perspective where she sees a wider conspiracy net around who is taken, why they are taken, what's happening with how thousands might be connected to certain events. So it's a broader sci-fi esque kind of aspect to it, but it's very much grounded in a specific missing person case
mm,
crime.
that's cool. Super awesome. Love me a good mystery. My friend, we saw a book the other day because we were buying stuff up in Syracuse at a really cool used bookstore. They have a lot of urban fantasy stuff usually. We found a little bit more sci-fi and fantasy this time, but we haven't been there since my son was born, so it was like 3 years. We got some good books, but yeah, we were on our way out, and I was like, oh, this looks like. I was like, I read that Nancy Drew, I read that one, I read this other. Like, I forget what the other mystery series they were trying to sell at the same time as Nancy Drew in the '90s for the books. But I was like, yeah, I read that. It was like these people were like popular people are at high school and have to solve these mysteries or whatever. I think there's only like maybe 3 books, didn't really kick off, but I thought they were cool. And he was like, "Oh, like I didn't realize like you really like mystery." I was like, "Yeah, that's why I actually initially got into the Dresden Files because he's a PI, and I thought, what would a wizard PI be like? Like it's really cool." So yeah, I think that sounds really awesome with the missing. So definitely can't wait for that. That sounds really cool. Now, when it comes to characters, how do you write ones that your readers will care about?
When I'm putting together a character, I try to figure out again, like what would their situation be? Where are they coming from when in terms of plot, in terms of the situation that they're dealing with, what is going through their head. So when I'm writing, I do it. I always do third person from a multi point of view. So I might be following Loren for one chapter, and I'll be with Soraya in the next. And it comes very much, what's happening to them at this moment? What are they going through? And so in terms of how I create those characters, I try to make them as human as possible because they should be. They should be able to connect with us on some personal level. In terms of, if I was dealing with a horde of Cerberus heads, like how would I deal with that? Like, like
Yeah,
I'd be panicked. I'd be running, I'd
yeah,
be screaming my face off, right?
yeah,
So how do they deal with it? How do they put that fear aside? How do they stand up? Or do they not? Do they panic?
yeah,
I just wrote a chapter yesterday where Loren sees the enemy on all sides and he freezes. He doesn't know how to deal with this because there's so many people relying on him in this moment that he can't do it. And it takes somebody else to take charge and push him to do it.
I don't know enemies of on all sides, but man, I had this like that's like this project I just got done with. I was just like at a point where I'm like, I just want someone else to, and I've never had this before, where I'm like just so exhausted, where I'm like, I just want someone else to do this, like I'm usually like I'm the one that like picks up the torch and I'm like running in front. So I had that feeling where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I felt like I had enemies on all sides. So I definitely feel like I connected with
See?
that moment for that character. So that's speaking to me today. So that sounds awesome. But I think that makes total sense, right? Like I always think about that. Like if I'm not interested in what's going on with the character, right, or in a character, I feel like the chances of other people probably won't be as well, right? So to me, like I'm like, okay, like what am I really trying to do with this character? Like and I really try to kind of think deeper, right? Like if you read it, right, like, what would you get out of it? And I think a lot to like Dresden Files, and I just like I'm in book 14 right now, Cold Days, and I'm just like, oh my god, dude, like this guy just got more power and then still is now like you think he'd be the NFL, but now all of a sudden he's like facing all these other people, and it's like it really didn't help very much, right? like so I felt when I got my my first teaching job, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get paid, it's gonna be better, and I was like, nope, still have to do two jobs, and I felt that so much, and I don't know, it was like something so silly because he's a wizard detective, right? But like Butcher writes it in a way, or like Mercy Thompson, right, for Patricia Briggs, like I just trying to keep everybody safe, right, and like trying to not be the one like the weak link, right? Like I just feel like anybody can relate to that kind of thing. So I think what you say, what you're saying makes total sense, and I think it's good for authors to think about, right? Because I just am trying to read somebody's urban fantasy book right now who's super popular, and I'm just like, I don't care about this character, and I'm halfway through the book, and I'm really trying, but it's like I tried the audio, I tried the Kindle, I tried the paperback, and I'm just like, I just don't care. And like I'm really trying, but like I'm hoping once I finish the book, maybe it's just like sometimes it hits you in that part of life when you're reading, and I feel like I'm a mature enough reader to realize that. But yeah, like I keep thinking about this because I'm like, I don't want to ever write, and I can't solve this for everybody, right? For the majority of people, I want them to read what I'm writing and really feel something, right? Or at least want to see how that person succeeds or fails. I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't usually DNF for books, but I'm like, I think I might. Like I don't know. But yeah, I think it's good to for everybody to think about particularly for indie, because you need people to care about your characters, right, in order to move on to the next book or the next series. So
Yeah, and I think inner strength is great for like your badass heroine, but at the same time, like they gotta fall. They gotta
yeah,
they gotta they gotta get bumps and bruises along the way, either emotionally or physically.
yeah,
They have to take those hits.
yep,
They
yep,
can't be perfect.
yeah. Yeah, I have my friend. He's like, dude, you're so mean to this one MC. I'm like,
You have to be.
well, yeah, but I'm like, I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm like, by the end of the series, he's gonna get to a really good place. Like I know, right? And like, but I'm like, yeah, I'm like, this is just life. It's just life in urban fantasy, I guess. But yeah, it's always interesting to check in at those points. But now, if you could help any one of your characters, which one would it be, and what would you help them with? Would you help them on a case, alien invasion, like stopping a god? Who are you helping? What are you doing?
What am I doing? At this point, probably therapy, right? I'll probably be their therapist. They'll probably be sitting on the couch telling me what to, I can't do this anymore. What are you doing?
I just I thought about that the other day because I was like, my back was bugging me, and I just like had so much to do here, and like we have a small staff, and like I had so many kids relying on me, and people relying on me for different stuff, and I just like it was like for 3 weeks straight, I was just like woke up in the morning, felt like crap, and I was just like took a deep breath, somehow got up, and I think just getting up out of bed and getting moving for those like these past 3 weeks has just been tough.
I
just like,
believe it.
but like I don't have to. But at the end of the day, I was thinking about because I was listening to Dresden Files and reading it too on Kindle, and I was like, I don't have to deal with Fae. Knock on wood. I don't have to deal with like wizards.
That you know about.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, but I'm just like, I just have to get up and go to work, and I don't know why. Maybe that's the other cool thing about books, right? And these characters is like seeing them go through total crap. You're like, I can deal with my mundane job and having to get gas on the way to work and get something my kid will eat, right? Like just these little things. Yeah, therapy is a good one. Yeah, you have me thinking now. Like, what would an urban fantasy therapist who's dealing with maybe that's like a cool story or book, right? Dealing
Start
with
taking
Monster
notes.
Hunter and the monsters they're hunting, right? As two different clients.
There you go. Yeah,
Really
right.
cool. It's a great answer. All right, well, Lou, I know we're winding down on time here, but I just want to make sure we have enough time for this last question. Do you have any news, updates, current projects, anything like that you can share with us today before we head out?
Always, always new projects, right? Always. Book 8 of Greystone just came out last week.
Oh, awesome.
It was called Legends and Legacies. Book 9 arrives in August. It's called Secret
Sweet.
of the Stone. That's the penultimate chapter in the series. And I am currently drafting Book 10, which is called Heart of Forever. And it's very much a celebration of everything that's happened before. So many callbacks to previous books. I'm loving every second of it. So that's where I am right now. For those looking for more DSA, that's coming next year. I'm hoping to dive into season 3 this fall. All 6 books are outlined and scripted, so I know there's so many twists and turns. Like even I was surprised. I was just there was a moment in the first book where I was like, wait a minute, this character is associated with this person this entire time, and we didn't know that. It just came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
at the end of the second book in the series, there's a reveal that was not in the original outline, and it's a game changer for the series. So it was a lot of fun to see that just happen naturally. I had nothing to do with it. I swear.
That's awesome. We'll have to have you on for season 6. We'll get you in the summer and pop you in early. In once you have that August release, because I'll be releasing literally the last week in September. So maybe we can figure something out, and once you have your release date and stuff, we can pop you in really early.
Yeah, man, I'd
just
love to hear your thoughts on Hammer and Anvil too. Yeah.
Oh man, I can't wait. I keep passing it. My wife's like, I was like, I just have to finish this 10K word story by Sunday so that I can be on track, because I'm like leading this anthology, and I'm like, I gotta be like really succinct with stuff. Yeah, so I'm like just trying to behave.
Yeah, no, I'm
Be
excited to
the
read it.
lead.
Yeah.
Yeah, the core team lead. So, but yeah, I just was like, if I could just get this done. So yeah, but I can't wait because I'm like getting so burnt out from doing so many words and redrafts and stuff. So it's been nice to sprinkle in some great books. Literally the last year and a half, I've read some of the best books I think I've read in 10 years, like indie, traditional, like classics, like you name it.
That's great. You need
I'm
that.
sure yours is going to be up there too. So yeah, I can't wait. I actually just can't wait for vacation and just sit down and read some paperbacks. And that's the main thing I have to do, right? Is like read both your book ones. Talk about good homework.
That's it. There'll be a
Can't
test.
wait. Yeah. You can test me. It's fine. Usually I do pretty well. All right. Well, Lou, thank you so much for coming on today. This has
Oh,
been
thank you.
great. I'm so glad. Like I met you a couple years ago, so I was so glad. We could get stuff figured out. This year for you and get you on. And then I always let veterans of the podcast come on. more frequently, than I do newer people. I feel like that's only fair. You guys are helping me out get content, and love to get I love to get people back on because it's always nice to kind of snapshot where they're at different times with different projects. And I've had some just amazingly cool things happen to people. Like Carissa Broadbent has this amazing traditional contract now. I see her books at Target, Barnes and Noble all the time. It's just super cool to see people flourishing.
That's
So
fantastic.
yeah, I'd love to have you on, for season 6. But I really appreciate you coming on today and chatting with us, and really diving into your books a bit, and some of your characters and your writing style. So we all really appreciate it.
I thank you so much for having me. I talk process all day with you. Let's do
Awesome. I
it.
appreciate that. Well, I want to remind our audience you can find all of Lou's book and socials in the description anywhere you're watching or viewing or listening to this podcast. So please make sure you go down and click below. Please make sure that you are reviewing all products for authors, creatives like Lou. It's really the thing that helps out everybody at this point with these crazy algorithms, whether it's indie or traditional. So if you guys could continue to do that, as our main theme of the podcast, we really appreciate it. Please make sure you guys are sharing, subscribing, particularly share this podcast, so more people can check out Lou and his amazing products. But other than that, we appreciate everybody, coming on today. And Lou, again, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope we can talk again, really soon. So I really appreciate it.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you. Everybody have a good rest of the day. Thank you so much.